The weather will do whatever the weather wants to do, right? So we just have to roll with it, I guess. Thank you again for joining us. This is the Community of Practice Strategic Planning Toolkit. Previously, you were invited to the Community Readiness webinars, and we thank our presenters for that. This is brought to you by the OJJDP Tribal Youth TTA Center from the Indian Country Child Trauma Center. So we are going to get started here. I know that many of the tribes out there are concerned about the vanishing or the diminishing use of our indigenous languages. So we wanted to greet you in our indigenous language. I'm Oglala Lakota. I'm also Crow. That first greeting, Daya Yahipi. Welcome. It is good you are here. My friend and colleague, Paulette Running Wolf, is Blackfeet. Her greeting is Oki. You'll hear from her in just a little bit. She's going to give our traditional opening. And my friends and colleagues that are Pawnee Nawa, hello. And the Muskogee Creek greeting, Henche. Henche. I hope I said it right. So I know that some of the tribes, a lot of the tribes are not represented, and you have your own greetings, and we really appreciate the use of the language and the fact that we still have our languages. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Paulette Running Wolf. She's going to give us a traditional opening. Paulette? Paulette might be having some technical difficulties, so I'll go ahead and do the opening. I'm going to do it in my Lakota language, and I ask you to close your eyes wherever you're at. Think about our children, our grandchildren. Think about their future and what we're working toward, and our vision for our children, that they will all be healthy and happy, that they will all have their cultural ways, that they will have their languages, their ceremonies. So just envision that while I give the traditional opening. Tunkashila le ampetu opila tanka echiche. Tunkashila taku wongwa kapiki. Oya kapikte hechel oyate ki iwashte pikte iota wakhanjapi. Tunkashila unshunki lapie. Grandfather, grandmother of the spirit world, we ask that you pity us on this day. We thank you for this day. We ask that you bless what we're going to talk about today so that the people will benefit and ultimately the children will benefit. All my relatives, thank you so much. And Paulette, I know that you are praying wherever you're at, and we were having some technical difficulties yesterday and this morning, so I appreciate her wanting to be on and trying to be on, but we understand about the technical difficulties. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about forging a path. What is the path for our projects? We need a mission, right? We need a vision, and we also need to understand how to use the needs and resources of our communities. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Ephleen Ironcloud Two Dogs. My Lakota name is Shina Ikikjui, Takes the Robe Woman. Again, I'm a staff person with the Indian Country Child Trauma Center from the OJJDP Training and Technical Assistance Center. Very pleased to be with you today. Here's our staff, our wonderful staff, our circle of people that bring all of the resources together and offer the opportunities to you to strengthen your projects and to help you to move along this path that we're forging. Our director, Dolores Subia Bigfoot, the assistant director, Jamie Bartis, project manager, Courtney Ahola, project manager 2, J.D. Braden, project administrative assistant, Gandra Laval. Hello, everybody, if you're out there. Here is our training and technical assistance coordinators, Paulette Rennywolf, Blackfeet, Anna Clow, Muskogee, and Yuki, I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. Excuse me, Anna. Natalie, Cheyenne River, Lakota, Jerry Weisner, Muskogee, and myself. So here's our agenda. We did our welcome, our tech review, our traditional opening. You've seen who our staff are. We're going to be talking about mission statements, vision statements, identifying needs, strengths, and resources. We're going to have some questions, some discussion, wrap up, and we're going to invite you to participate throughout this webinar so that we can get your input also. And then we'll do our traditional closing by Courtney. So what is a mission? What is a mission to you? Type in the chat box here. We want to get your input on what you think a mission is. A mission in terms of your project, in terms of your children, your communities, your youth, your elders. We invite your participation here. What is a mission? What do you consider a mission? And I know some people are typing here. Those of you that have just joined us, thank you for joining us. We're talking about the mission today, and we're doing a little mind map activity. What's on your mind about mission? So Alma is saying it is what your purpose is, what we aim for. That's very important. What is our purpose? What are we aiming for? It's a statement of responsibility, Gerald says. Thank you for that. Anne says it's a goal to guide us on our path. Very important. We need that goal. We need to see what's at the end and work toward it. The responsibility is very, very important. Responsibility to whom? To the project, to our children, to our future. Norma, the overall plan for your project, which includes goals and objectives. Yes, very, very important. It guides us. It's a goal. It gives us purpose. Gives us aim. Thank you for those contributions. Appreciate that. So we know that a mission statement clearly articulates what we do, why we do what we do, who we do it for, what values drive our mission, the here and now. A mission statement is brief, short, and concise. Lynette says a mission is joining together to empower our youth. Very important. We need to work together, and we need to have a clearly defined mission. Thank you for that. Here's an example, some examples of mission statements. The Native American Center from Hawaii says, our mission is to share and perpetuate the Native American culture and its spirituality. The Wounded Warrior Project says that their mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors. So some of you, if not all of you, were a part of the community readiness work. The community readiness model talks about the stages of readiness for the development of appropriate strategies that result in efforts that are more successful, cost-effective, and sustainable. So this is just a reminder about how to incorporate the community readiness model into your mission and vision work, development work. So how do we do that? One of the goals of the community readiness model is to ensure that the voices of the tribe and the community are heard so that they are invested, engaged, and ready to address an issue. So, for example, whenever we do our mission and vision, is it from the grant writer's perspective? Is it from the project staff perspective, or is it from the tribe and the community's perspective? And more importantly, who is the tribe? Who is the community? Do we have a broad representation of the community in terms of elders, in terms of youth, in terms of children or youth that are not in school, and students, tribal officials, spiritual leaders? So this goal of the community readiness model is to ensure that as many voices as possible are represented so that they are invested, engaged, and ready to address an issue. The assessment results, again, this is just a reminder. I know that many of you have participated in the community readiness model work, and you remember that the assessment results and the information gathered during the action planning can be used to assist your group in the development or revision of your mission statement. So say you want to use your results from the assessment and say, well, this is where we're at. This is from the community. So let's use this information to develop or revise our mission statement. So what are vision statements? How are they different from mission statements? So they provide a visualization of what the organization intends to ultimately become, or the project, or community, or family. So for example, whenever we started, I said, close your eyes and visualize our children being happy, being healthy, speaking their language, all of the good things that we want for our children and grandchildren. So when you visualize that, that gives us incentive. It gives us incentive to work toward. So the vision statements present a description of your project, your organization as you'd like to see it in 5, 10, or more years. So for example, among the Lakota people, then we would meet at one of our sacred mountains in South Dakota in the Black Hills, Bear Butte. That's one of our sacred sites, one of our sacred mountains. And the people would gather there to talk about the future of the next generations to come. And they would organize their work and their mission and their vision around that. Where do we want our children to be in the next generation, in the next 2 generations, 4 generations? So our people were very far-seeing, and their visions were far-reaching. All the strategies and objectives are directed toward the vision of the organization. So there has to be an alignment with the vision and the mission. So ask these questions when you're drafting a vision statement. Is it feasible? Is it inspiring? Is it concise? Is it appealing to the stakeholder? Is it consistent with the mission? Sometimes we are very well-meaning. Sometimes we want to save the world, and sometimes our vision statements are not feasible. So we have to think about that, kind of bring ourselves down back to reality. So here's some examples of vision statements. One of our revered leaders, the grandfather, Crazy Horse Oglala Lakota, said, I see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life and the whole earth will become one circle again. So he was looking into 7 generations when all people can exist as relatives, basically. That's how I see it. That's how I interpret it. The Native American Community Academy vision statement is a thriving and dynamic community where students, educators, families, and Native community leaders come together, creating a place for students to grow, becoming leaders, and preparing to excel in both college and life in general. So that's what they see, and that's what they want to see. That's what they're working toward in the future. So here's some thoughts about mission and vision statements. How can you word your mission and vision statements to invite partnerships and collaboration. I think historically, for example, among the Lakota people, when the Lakota people went on a buffalo hunt, then there was planning, there was organization, there was a mission, and the mission was that everybody will be fed. Nobody will go hungry. So it wasn't about one family going out and getting a buffalo for themselves. It was about all of the people benefiting from that hunt. So how, if we thought about contemporary times, how do we invite partnerships and collaboration so that more people will benefit? All of the youth, most of the youth, many of the youth will benefit, and not just a select few. Will your vision statement stand the test of time? For example, when a project's funding ends, can the work to realize the vision continue? And I think this is a very important question in terms of sustainability, because a lot of times we're project vision, and I'm not talking about, anybody in particular, just in general, when a project is started and then it ends and then everybody goes off on their own way. But how do we continue that? How do we continue the vision for example, a better life for our children and our families? How can we continue that? Another thought is, how can we guard against mission drift? Mission drift meaning, okay, this is our mission here, and we're going to do this particular activity, these particular tasks, but we decide that we need to focus on something else and we go away from our mission. And sometimes that's necessary. But how do we guard against it so that we stay true to our mission? I think that's something that's a very important consideration. Other questions to consider? Have staff been trained in the mission and vision of the organization? I worked for an organization some years ago, and we would be asked periodically, spontaneously, out of the blue, being passed in the, somebody passes us in the hallway and says, what is the mission statement of this organization? And it really challenged us to know this, the mission of our organization, because if we didn't know it, then there was concern, well, if you don't know the mission, then how do you know what you're doing is in alignment with the mission? So we would have training on the mission and vision of the organization, and we would make sure that everybody knew it and that it was typed up and put on the wall, it was in posters, so that everybody was reminded all the time of the mission and vision. Does the work staff are doing reflect the mission and vision of the organization? Does your organization revisit your mission and vision periodically? So doing some reflection about, okay, this is what we're doing. Are we in alignment with our mission and vision? So in order to develop a mission and vision statement, then we also need to know our needs and our resources. I believe some of you, if not all of you, your projects have been engaged in a needs assessment process and identifying those needs. What are the conditions? What are the concerns? And how can this help formulate the mission, vision, and provide a framework for action planning? We need to know what we have, what we need. So, for example, again, using the buffalo hunt as an example, so the people that were going to go on the hunt, they had to know, well, this is what we need. We need our, our arrows, we need our bows, we need our horses. There's certain horses that have to be trained, that are trained to go up right beside a buffalo and not get spooked and throw their rider, throw the person off. So they knew that they needed certain resources. Who's going to do the butchering? Are the knives sharp? Do we have enough people to do that? There's all kinds of considerations. And it's the same way with the project. So you have a certain project that you're doing. For example, if you're going to reduce juvenile recidivism in a court-based program, then what are your needs? What are the resources? And how can we use those to formulate the mission and vision? And again, provide the framework for action planning. If there's any questions or comments, feel free to type them into the chat box, and we'll certainly take those into consideration as we go along. So we're going to do a little activity here. We're going to draft a vision and a mission statement from the example below. So you'll be typing in the chat box, and I'm going to switch over here for just a second, but I'll come back here, okay? So the example on the previous slide, and I'll go back to it, you're going to draft a mission statement in 6 words or less. And if you have time, then you can draft a vision statement 10 words or less, okay? So the mission statement, 6 words or less, the vision statement, 10 words or less, using this information. The strengths of a community, of a particular community, for example, our culture, the youth, the elders, good schools, Johnson O'Malley, Tribal Council, churches, suicide prevention program, mountains, recreation activities, committed people. The conditions, the concerns, or the needs are parents aren't involved, or they're involved at a very on a limited basis. People don't know what's going on with our kids. So recently I was reading about cough syrup, that a lot of our young people are getting high on cough syrup, and that's a big concern of the community. So I didn't know that, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know that, and we don't know it until we read about it or somebody brings it to our attention. Adult alcohol use is no one's business. So that's one of the conditions, that's one of the concerns you might hear out there. Well, it's my business if I drink, it's nobody else's business. So that's an attitude that is of concern to a certain, project. We have local data, but we can't get it. Okay, where is that local data? How can we get it? That's a concern. How can we get it? From the school or the hospital? If you ever have gone to the Bureau of Indian Education website, they have school report cards. And if a school received funding from the Bureau of Indian Education, they have what's called the data collection system, and the schools report on their level of proficiency in math, science, reading. They also have information about substance abuse, information about violent incidents. So there's some data there, but how do we know that it's there? How do we bring people's attention to that? For example, there's no focus on the issue. Leaders have other issues they need to deal with. People don't care until we have the death of a child. Drinking is part of our community's culture. We are in denial about how bad it is here with our youth. There's no treatment available for youth or adults. There's no money for efforts. The resources are law enforcement, schools, the newspaper, school paper, churches, sports, running track, Boys and Girls Club, meeting space available, alcohol prevention program, suicide prevention program, mental health program, Johnson O'Malley, the parents, our lake and our river. So let's do a mission statement in 6 words or less from this, taking the conditions, the concerns, the needs, and then using the strengths and the resources that are out there. So feel free to type into the chat box. 6 words or less. If you prefer to do a vision statement, then you can do a vision statement that's 10 words or less. So what is the mission here? How can we come up with something that takes all of this into account? Feel free to type in the chat box. Lynette, Norma, who else is out there? Gerald, Ann, Ron, David, Diane, Cedric, Crystal. Waiting to hear from you. Janie. Jill, Carl, Corey, Leslie, Lynette, Sarah, Samantha, Tanya, Tenzing, I hope I said your name right. So what do you think? A mission statement in 6 words or less from this example here, the strengths, the conditions, the concerns, the needs, the resources. Time to get the brain juices flowing. Paulette, Natalie, any ideas about a mission statement? And like I said, you can do a vision statement too in 10 words or less. The point of it is to make it as concise as possible and to inspire people to want to work on this together. Okay, so I know that people are typing, and this example here, it can be anywhere. It can be any community, whether it's a native urban area, whether it's an urban area not native, whether it's a reservation community, whether it's a city, a town. It doesn't have to be any particular place, but there's concerns out there that are similar to what the people are saying here. In this example, people don't know what's going on with our kids. So if we were to draft a mission statement that we want to enlighten people, we would have some kind of social marketing project where we would say, well, people, this is what's going on with our kids, and having something on the radio, having something on perhaps TV, maybe having some a forum, a community forum, maybe having a conference. So there's a lot of ways that we can tackle that people don't know what's going on with their kids. So the mission might be people will know what's going on with our kids. Or maybe that's the vision statement. See, this is where the challenge is the distinction between the mission and the vision. So remember the mission, and I'll go back here just to give you a brief reminder. What we do, why we do what we do, who we do it for, what values drive our mission, the here and now, brief and short, 6 words or less. Doesn't have to be 6 words, but for this activity, for this exercise, and we'll just use 6 words or less. Concise, very important. Again, the examples. Our mission is to share and perpetuate the Native American culture and its spirituality. The Wounded Warrior Project, to honor and empower wounded warriors. That's the mission of these organizations. So going back to the example, there's little involvement of parents. However, we have our culture. There's no treatment available for youth or adults. However, we have a suicide prevention program. We can gain the support of the tribal council, the churches, the schools. Our resources include the mental health program, law enforcement. So 6 words or less. A mission statement to address these conditions, these concerns, and you can take any one of those. So our mission is to involve the parents, engage the parents in the school programs or in community programs, and we're going to use our strengths. So, for example, using our culture to engage our parents. That's our mission. Okay, so I am looking at the responses, and Mark, those are a little bit hard to see on some of the text goes off the screen. So thank you very much. So Norma, the overall, let's see. So Anne has given some input on the mission statement, creating a culture of unified communication. Very important. Norma, improving health and wellness through community. Alma, develop a community of empowered youth. Jill, making a healthy community our top priority. Natalie, empowering youth to live a healthy life. Anna, improving the lives of youth through wellness. Samantha, promoting wellness through cultural education. Cedric, strengthening our youth through our culture. Lynette, empowering youth for a positive community. Natalie, strengthening our circle to support youth into the future. Gerald, educating teens, youth to cultural healthy living. Very inspiring. If you look at those statements, then it makes you want to put some energy into it, invest in it. And yes, we do want to improve the lives of youth through wellness. We do want to strengthen our youth through our culture. We do want to empower our youth for a positive community. Leslie says Boys and Girls Club will provide after-school programming. That's the mission. That's what they do, who they do it for. And so thank you for that. All of those examples are really, really powerful, very inspiring, and I don't know if anybody wants to use those use those statements. Maybe you can get permission from the people that gave the input, but very inspiring. So what about a vision statement? Let's do a vision statement. Remember, vision statements are different from missions, right? So 10 words or less. What are vision statements? They provide a visualization. They present a description. Everything is directed toward the vision of the organization. And then when you're developing these vision statements, consider these questions. Is it feasible? Is it inspiring? Is it concise? Is it appealing to the stakeholder? Is it consistent with the mission? So take your mission statement. For example, Lynette, empowering youth for a positive community. What is the vision for that? And again, those examples I see, and that's, I think, the distinction between the mission and the vision is that it's the vision statement is something that you see into the future, that you work toward. The mission is what you're working on and who you're working for. The Native American Community Academy, a thriving and dynamic community where students, educators, families, and Native community leaders come together, creating a place for students to grow, becoming leaders, preparing to excel in both college and life in general. So they are looking toward the future, and that's the distinction between the vision and the mission, is that it's very visionary, for lack of a better term, so that it's something that will inspire us. When times get really tough, then we remember that vision. We remember, why are we here? You know, what are we doing? What are we working toward? So 10 words or less, the vision statements. They present a description, a visualization. They're feasible. The statement is feasible, inspiring, concise, appealing, consistent. And again, the example. So 10 words or less. Let's come up with a vision statement. Will it stand the test of time? It's not time limited. So take, for example, little involvement in parents. What's the vision? What do we see in the future with parent involvement? What about treatment? There's no treatment available for youth or adults. What is the vision for the future in terms of treatment, in terms of healing for youth and adults? I would like to say that some of your contributions are representative of vision statements, and it doesn't mean that you can't expand on them. So the vision statement is something that will guide us, something that will provide us incentive, will inspire us to move forward. Okay, Anne, Jill, Paulette, Lynette, Leslie, Corey, Carl, Sarah, any thoughts about vision statements using this example? So the vision from Lynette, thank you, Lynette, reduce recidivism among youth through culture and, Mark, I can't see that last word there on the screen. Jill, using our culture and resources, creating a healthy community. Okay, so let's take Lynette's reducing recidivism among youth through culture. So how can we, what do we visualize? We see youth, we see an elimination of youth offenses in the court. We see youth that are getting sober and are not relapsing. That's what we see in the future. Family support. Samantha, an understanding safe place for youth to develop models for the future. And a strong tribal community coming together to support. And again, I apologize, but my screen, I cannot see the words off to the right there. So we see a healthy community. That's what we're working for. And we're using our culture and resources, a strong, healthy community, a culturally strong, healthy community. That's what we see in the future. We see family support, strong family support. We see a place for youth to go to, an understanding and safe place. So you can kind of see how we have to make a distinction between vision and mission. Vision is inspiring, visionary. The mission is what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and who we do it for. So the mission is what is our guide, and the vision is what inspires us for the future. So any questions about that? Any comments about that? So Anna, all youth becoming well through culture, community, and action. Thank you, Chelsea. Chelsea said drag the presenter area over to the left. So thank you for that. I can see it now. ALMA, a community of empowered tribal youth and families desiring to take control of their destiny utilizing culture and tribal traditional support systems. That's what we see in the future. We see empowered tribal youth. We see empowered tribal families that have taken control of their destiny. They are utilizing the culture and tribal traditional support systems. That's our vision. So thank you for that, Alma. So all of these examples are very important to making sure that we understand the distinction between vision and mission, but also drafting it from a point of where we can be inspired by it. So Gerald, education is empowering the mind. Cultural education is empowering the child to be a whole person by providing an elder's wisdom. So what we see is we see a child that is becoming an elder using the wisdom of the elders. And we're providing that cultural education to do that. Again, I use the Lakota examples just because I'm Lakota, and that's the only examples I can draw upon. But we have what's called stages of life, and we have the stages of cultural education. So by the time a child is 12 years old, they should know this culturally. By the time a youth is 20, 21, then they should know certain cultural practices, ceremonies, protocols, things like that. So I really like that example, Gerald, about the cultural education, empowering a child to become a whole person. Paulette, culture and family-based support systems to services to eliminate substance abuse and promote community healing. Leslie, so our vision is to change the future through safe havens to foster learning and promote healing. Very important. Norma, a healthy community with decreased substance abuse and strong supportive communities, strong supportive programs. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the first line there. So what we see is we see a community in the future, no substance abuse, strong and supportive programs to support that and maintain that. That's our vision. That's what we want to work toward. So thank you so much for that. I think these examples, your input is very, very critical, very powerful. So what we wanted to do is provide an example of what mission statements, what they do. Again, they articulate what your project and organization does. The vision statements, they provide a picture of where you'd like your project or organization to be in the future. The needs and the strengths and the resources need to be identified to inform the mission and vision and for action planning. So we're going to use this time to do some discussion about, and also to respond to any questions you might have, but I really believe that your input in terms of your experience, your examples are very key to peer learning, to learning from each other about your experience with mission and vision statements. Can somebody give me an example of mission drift? And you don't have to name an organization or name, you don't have to have any kind of identifying information, but what in your experience is mission drift? How has that happened? How can we guard against it? So Mark, Gerald is asking for a copy of what we have contributed. Is it going to be available? And I'm sure that there's going to be a transcript. There usually is for these webinars on what people contributed. There's also a recording of it that will be available. And Mark is saying, yes, I can get this for everyone. So Mark will send out a copy of what you, the input that you gave. So let's talk about that. What is mission drift? So say you've developed this wonderful mission, this wonderful vision, you're going along, and then somebody calls to your attention or you realize, hey, we're drifting away from our mission. What's an example of that? How can we guard against it? So if our mission articulates what our project and organization does, then it would be important to review and revisit that periodically so that we can guard against that. That's one way of guarding against mission drift. Drifting away from our original purpose. Our vision, again, provides a picture of where you like the project or organization to be in the future. And we need to identify our needs, our strengths, and our resources so that we can inform the mission, vision, and action planning. So Anna, so if defined, and I'm assuming it's the mission statement, if the mission is defined and agreed upon, goals are not developed at the start, it seems like mission drift may come into effect. Exactly, Anna. So if we don't define what we're doing, if we don't agree upon the goals for the mission, for the vision, if they're not developed at the start, then we're going to drift off into different directions, right? Thank you for that, Anna. So Candace, mission drift. An example is a new leader of a program has a pet issue and pressures all the grants to make it central. So, for example, I'm thinking, Candace, maybe things are done a certain way with the new leader of the program, and they're very loyal to that way of doing things, and so they pressure grant staff, for example, to do things in that way when maybe all of a sudden I heard a ringing on the phone. Gerald, when you mix mission and vision together when you're in your action plans, guard against it by meeting and stating both mission, vision and mission statements. Very practical, Gerald. I think that's something that we should take note of. So when we're doing our action plans, are we meeting regularly, and do we have our vision and mission very visible so that we can be reminded of what we're doing? Jill, expanding programs into areas that are not central to the original goals and target population. So for example, the mission drift might be we are doing a certain program for a certain population, but we decide that we see a need, so we expand the program into areas that are not central to the original goals and target population. So maybe we're focused on youth, but we start serving elders, which isn't wrong, or there isn't anything wrong with that. It's just that it's gone away from the mission. So we have to revisit our mission and decide, well, are we doing community work or are we doing just youth work? What are we doing here? Mary, we use our tribal language to keep our vision in focus, such as we had the TATU, Teens Against Tobacco Use. We used our language, WATU, it means, in our language means no, and the acronym breaks down to Warriors Against Tobacco Use. Very inspiring. So the tribal language is the focus, and it keeps the project's vision in focus. So the Teens Against Tobacco Use, what the project wants to do is either reduce or eliminate teens using tobacco use. So it sounds like they use the warrior concept of we are warriors and we're against tobacco use and we're going to fight it. So very inspiring. Anne feels like this happens in Indian tribes when we get caught up in a value system that doesn't agree with the heart of our culture. For example, politics and money driving our priorities instead of our culture and relationships. I think that's a very important observation in terms of being project-focused instead of vision-focused. So, for example, we talked a little bit about that earlier, about sustainability and how when a project starts, everybody is very much engaged, invested because there's funding there and, everything's fine. But when the funding diminishes or goes away, then people will go away too. I'm not saying this is applicable to everybody. I'm just generalizing because I know that this has happened in my experience. And so if the politics and the money, the funding is driving the priorities, then the culture and the relationships get pushed to the background. I think that's what Anne is sharing. So I think that's something that we really have to consider in terms of what we're being driven by. Are we being driven by, for example, our youth not using tobacco, the safety and the health, because the tobacco use, the commercial tobacco use, does something to our bodies in an unhealthy way. It has an impact. The secondhand smoke has an impact on our children and our communities. So we want to see a healthier community. So if we're being driven by that, then it's much different than, well, we don't have funding anymore, so we're not going to fight against, the commercial tobacco use. So I understand that, that concept there. Thank you so much for all of your input. I think this is a very important discussion, and it's something that we should continue the discussion on because all of these examples are based on experience. They're based on things that have happened before, and they will happen again if we don't guard against them. Any questions? So we have our community readiness assessment. We are going to have a webinar on May 24th, and we're going to learn how to develop program action plans. And I know many of you, if not all of you, already know how to do these things. This isn't new information for you. Some of you are very experienced program people, and I really encourage you to share, your experiences, your visions, your mission, the things that have worked, the things that haven't worked. So we're going to be doing that. I know that we have this webinar scheduled for 90 minutes, and we can certainly use the time if you want further discussion, if you have questions. Otherwise, I think this time with you all was very productive. I learned some things, and I really appreciate all of your input. So if there's no other questions, then we will be closing out. And I'd just like to, before I turn it over to Courtney, I would just like to call your attention to the link at the bottom. We'd like to have your feedback on this webinar. We'd like to thank you for your presence, your spirit, your good works. We look forward to a long and harmonious relationship. Please call us if you have any questions. This is the Indian Country Child Trauma Center. The phone number is 405-271-8858. The email is icctc@ouhsc.edu. The Community of Practice dial-in by phone information, that's just for this webinar and for future webinars. And again, click on the link to give feedback on this webinar. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Courtney. I really appreciate everybody making the time, taking the time to participate in this. And I want to congratulate you on your achieving the grant funding that you do have. And I'd like to give you encouragement for your efforts. I know it's there's a lot of things going on out there in Indian country, both that strengthen us and sometimes that weaken us. I'd like to acknowledge those communities and families and individuals that are going through losses, going through a hard time, and just encourage you to participate on May 24th. So I'll turn it over to Courtney, and I'd just like to acknowledge Anne's comment about her appreciation for keeping participants aware of the vision for a program. Having a positive picture in front reminds us of who we really are. That's very true. Thank you so much, Anne. So, Courtney? I think Courtney might be having some technical difficulties also. I know that in this stormy weather, then sometimes that affects the cell phone reception and the phone lines and the internet connectivity. So I will go ahead and do the...
Hello. Oh, sorry.
Are you on, Courtney?
I'm on. Yes. So thank you so much, Ethelene. And I was on mute and trying to figure out how to get myself unmuted. And before then, I had broken into a coughing fit. So those kinds of things happen. You know, I want to thank Ethelene for all of her preparation and a very thoughtful presentation this afternoon, and then all of you for joining and being present in your participation. I was just sitting back watching all of the contributions, and you know, we talk about what we're doing here and for our youth, for our children, for our families, or with our families and with our children. And just seeing the contributions and the strengths that we have of those that are working on these issues, it's very encouraging. So we are happy as a TA Center to be working with each and every one of you in your communities, and we look forward to a long, harmonious relationship. So with that, if you bear with me for just a small moment, I'll close us out in a prayer and ask that you pray along with me and send your good thoughts to those that might be in mourning or need uplifting at this time. So, Wa'adi Adam, come to you today. I want to say thank you, Lord, for this day, this beautiful place that you give us, this world, this life that we have. Every day we wake up as a new opportunity for us to live your love and to express our love in the things that we do. And so we thank you for that, Lord, and all the different paths that each and every person on this call, you've led us to this point to where we're trying to help our children and our families in our Indian communities. Lord, I ask that you be with them. They're the helpers. They're the ones that are out there trying to, those warriors, those that are going up against having these difficult conversations and whatever it takes, Lord. So, you know, we just try to do the best that we can. So I ask that you strengthen us and then be with their families and their all those thoughts that they might have on their hearts. So, but with that, I just ask that you bless each and every one of us. And we just thank you for everything, Lord. All this I pray. Aho.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Have a good day, everybody, and see you on May 24th. Thank you.